For the first time, we're getting a look inside a unique memorial where people of all colors can visit to reflect on the legacy of racial terror in America.
When the National Memorial for Peace and Justice opened its doors in Alabama this spring, it immediately opened a new generation's eyes to one of the darkest chapters in our nation's history. The memorial has been strictly off limits to filming since it opened to the public. KPIX is the first news organization to be invited inside the finished space. Our Christin Ayers traveled to Montgomery with an artist, friend, and former KPIX colleague whose work is part of the sacred space. And a caution, her piece contains strong historic images of racial violence and lynchings.
I'm a sixth-generation Californian, the daughter of a mass migration of blacks who went west. I was born long after the marches, sit-ins, and protests of the 50s and 60s civil rights era. I always knew not to look to my history books to tell me about my people. The story of my great-great-great-grandparents, Henry and Jane Venable, coming from Tennessee and Virginia to California as slaves during the gold rush, has been passed along by word of mouth, like tattered family heirlooms.
Don't shoot! Don't shoot!
While many in my generation carry on the fight for equality, chanting Black Lives Matter, Time's Up, taking a knee during the national anthem, the California of my youth seems light years away from the segregated South, the land where my ancestors once lived and died and fought so that I could be free. Now, I have a chance to retrace those footsteps, and by some miracle, I'm following the path of a woman who paved the way for me to become the journalist I am today, former KPIX 5 anchor Dana King. Here's our story, my journey to Montgomery.
I'm Dana King. Our top story.
For years, Dana King was beamed into millions of homes and living rooms, anchoring the 11 o'clock news on KPIX 5 for more than 15 years. Since she retired in 2012, she's become a sculptor.
It smells like earth and patchouli and...
Her latest commission is for a project that spans the entire history of blacks in America, a museum unlike any ever built in the United States. The brainchild of Brian Stevenson, the project would memorialize centuries of living horror, the capture, enslavement, terrorizing, murder, and mass incarceration of black people in America. Stevenson sees Germany's atonement for the Holocaust, South Africa for apartheid, Rwanda for genocide, and says we too, as a country, must embrace our collective history, the good and the bad.
And in this country, we haven't done that about slavery, about lynching, about segregation. There's no place in this country where you can go and have an honest experience with the history of lynching.
And why? Do you think it's because it's too painful?
I think it's because we have created a narrative of denial.
The Equal Justice Initiative's Memorial to Peace and Justice is expanding on that radical idea that we have to own our story. It can't be told by anybody but us.
Dana named her piece Guided by Justice. They represent the women of the Montgomery bus boycott. But it's not just a work of art, it's a work of love. These sculptures are the faces of Dana's ancestors, Aunt Tiny, great-great-grandma Lavinia, and a pregnant woman whose name she promised never to reveal. Now, I have the honor of following them to their final resting place in Alabama at the Memorial to Peace and Justice.
It's no accident that the memorial was built here. Montgomery was once the cradle of the Confederacy and much later the heart of the civil rights movement. From the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, where Martin Luther King Jr. spread the word, to the steps of the Capitol, where the march from Selma ended.
That's Martin.
Loretta Wimberly was on a first-name basis with Dr. Martin Luther King. She's the founder of the Black Heritage Council of Alabama. When Bloody Sunday happened on the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, she met the injured marchers right here at First Baptist Church.
Even those that were gassed on Bloody Sunday, all of them didn't go to the Good Samaritan. We had a little infirmary because a lot of people didn't have medical, so they had a little section there.
Those girls was down here in this basement.
Jesse Strong was just a little boy when a bomb thrown by Klansmen in a passing car ripped through the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham.
I'm 6 years old. We ain't go to church that day. We cleaned up after breakfast. We felt something go. We come outside. There was a big hole in this part of the church with smoke. The pressure from the dynamite knocked cars out in the street.
Killed in the blast, 4 little black girls who were in Sunday school: Addie Mae Collins, Cynthia Wesley, Carol Robertson, and Carol Denise McNair. But many more stories like theirs are left untold. That is where the Equal Justice Initiative comes in. They've worked with the state and other activists to create a historic civil rights trail, marking spots like this one, where Montgomery's massive slave market once stood. But EJI's most ambitious project is the one that brought me here with Dana, the National Memorial for Peace and Justice. A simple sign beckons visitors to come inside. Within a few feet, one is plunged into the psyche of a person kidnapped, chained, and being paraded naked.
She's losing her mind right before our eyes. Everything in her life that she had, her family, her home, her every material thing.
Everything she knew.
Everything she knew, her language, her religion, stolen from her. She's losing her mind.
Ghanaian artist Kwame Akoto Bamfo created this sculpture. Artist Hank Willis Thomas is also one of the 3 sculptors commissioned by EJI. If Kwame's piece is the alpha of the Black existence in America, then Hank's piece, a signifier for Black incarceration, is the omega.
It's hands up, you know, it's the don't shoot pose that we've all seen, that you've reported on, you know, that Black men and boys get shot for doing the most innocuous things, playing in a park, running through their neighborhood, just existing. But this is just modern day lynching.
The simplest sculptures on exhibit are the hardest to fully comprehend. More than 800 cordon steel columns organized by state and county, engraved with name after name after name. There are some 4,000 men, women, and children here, and the ghosts of countless others, beaten, tortured, and lynched after slavery was abolished from 1877 to 1950.
One of the most striking aspects of this memorial are really the stories of individuals who were lynched. Now, my family was, my great-great-great-great-great-grandmother was born in Tennessee in 1840. And you see stories out of Tennessee, like this one, as recently as 1940. A man named Elbert Williams lynched in Brownsville, Tennessee in 1940 for working to register Black voters as part of the local NAACP. And those stories, there are dozens and dozens of them all along the memorial.
Henry Smith, lynched in 1893 before a mob of 10,000. Samson Harris, killed in 1885 for threatening to report white men for whipping his neighbor. Dozens of sugarcane workers, lynched for striking to protest low wages. Among the honored and memorialized just a few feet away from the lynched are the ones who marched, Dana's sculptures representing the thousands of Black men, women, and children of the Montgomery bus boycott, Aunt Tiny, Grandma Lavinia James, and their friend.
You had a chance to kind of stand by and watch the reactions of people when the opening happened.
It's a terrifying thing, right? Your work is here, and I love it, and I hope that other people love it, and I hope that they connect with it and see their stories in these pieces. One woman walked up to my great-grandmother.
This one?
And she stood about 3 feet from her, and she bent down like this to look into her eyes. And to see her, maybe like no one saw her when she was alive. My great-grandmother was enslaved. And while she was an honorable person, she was never honored in her life. But to see people touch her and hug her is more than I could ever hope for.
On behalf of myself, Dana, and my crew, a sincere and heartfelt thank you to the Equal Justice Initiative for welcoming us, and finally, for creating a sacred place for me to honor my history, my American history.
For every one of those hanging steel columns in the museum, there is a replica on site that can be moved elsewhere to create new memorials. The Equal Justice Initiative is already in talks with dozens of local leaders who intend to do just that. And that's all for us. 60 Minutes is next.
And for news throughout the evening, the latest is always on CBSSF.com. We'll see you back here at 11.